Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the first letter of St. Peter. Beloved, be prudent and be vigilant in your prayers, but before all things have a constant mutual charity among yourselves, for love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without complaining. Just as each of you has received grace, minister in the same way to one another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. When anyone speaks, it should be like words of God. When anyone ministers, it should be from the virtue that God provides, so that in all things God may be honored through Jesus Christ. To him is glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen.
Distant shores, the gospel came across the sea to Ireland's hills. A servant rose from chains and trial to sing the glory of the Lord.
Sing to the Lord
a new song.
Sing to the Lord,
All you lands,
sing to the Lord,
bless his name.
proclaim God's marvelous deeds to all the nations.
Announce his salvation day after day. Tell his glory among the nations, among all peoples, his wondrous deeds.
Proclaim God's marvelous deeds to all the nations. Give to the Lord,
You families of nations,
give to the Lord,
glory and praise.
give to the Lord,
The glory to his name.
proclaim God's marvelous deeds to all the nations. Proclaim God's marvelous deeds to all the nations.
Through storm and fire, the mission spread across the emerald fields of Ireland. A shepherd once in chains returned to bring the light of Christ again. Say among the nations, the Lord is King. He has made the world firm, not to be moved. He governs the
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Now it happened that, when the crowds pressed toward him, so that they might hear the word of God, he was standing beside the lake of Gennesaret. And he saw two boats standing beside the lake, but the fishermen had climbed down, and they were washing their nets. And so, climbing into one of the boats, which belonged to Simon, he asked him to draw back a little from the land. And sitting down, he taught the crowds from the boat. Then when he had ceased speaking, he said to Simon, "Lead us into deep water and release your nets for a catch." And in response, Simon said to him, "Teacher, working throughout the night, we caught nothing, but on your word I will release the net." And when they had done this, they enclosed such a copious multitude of fish that their net was rupturing. And they signaled to their associates, who were in the other boat, so that they would come and help them. And they came and filled both boats, so that they were nearly submerged. But when Simon Peter had seen this, he fell down at the knees of Jesus, saying, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For astonishment had enveloped him, and all who were with him, at the catch of fish that they had taken. Now the same was true of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were associates of Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men." And having led their boats to land, leaving behind everything, they followed him. Join us for today's reflection. He did not care about God. By his own admission, he was a lukewarm teenager from a wealthy Christian family who ignored the priests and lived for himself. Then the raiders came. St. Patrick was 16 when Irish pirates dragged him from his family's estate in Roman Britain. They shipped him across the sea and sold him as a slave. For 6 years he herded sheep alone on a freezing hillside, starving, forgotten, owning nothing but the rags on his back, and that is where he found God. In his own words, "The Lord opened my unbelieving eyes, and I was converted with my whole heart to the Lord my God," not in a church, not through a sermon, in slavery, in suffering, in the place where everything was stripped away and he had nothing left but desperation. He started praying 100 times a day, not because he was holy, because he was broken and prayer was all he had. The cold, the hunger, the loneliness, the years of nothingness, these became the crucible that forged him into someone God could use. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you is the thing God is using to make you? That is not a comfortable question. We want our suffering to be meaningless so we can resent it. We want our wounds to be pure tragedy so we can stay angry. But St. Patrick looked back at 6 years of slavery and saw the hand of God, not excusing the evil, not pretending it was pleasant, but recognizing that God had used it. After 6 years, God spoke to him in a dream. "Your ship is ready, walk to the coast." He had no map. He had never seen that coastline. He walked 200 miles through hostile territory because a voice told him to. When he arrived, a ship was waiting. He escaped. He made it home. His family wept. He was free. He never had to see Ireland again. Then God told him to go back. He heard the Irish calling to him in a vision. "We beg you, holy boy, come and walk among us." The people who had enslaved him were pleading for him to return, and instead of telling them to rot, he started preparing. The church did not want to send him. They thought he was unqualified. He was not educated enough, not polished enough, not impressive enough. He had critics who dug up sins from his past and used them against him. He went anyway. He spent the rest of his life in Ireland. He baptized thousands. He ordained priests, built churches, established monasteries. The Druids tried to kill him. He was robbed, captured briefly, threatened constantly. He kept going. The people who stole his youth received his entire adulthood as a gift. What is your Ireland? Not the country, the situation, the wound, the relationship you escaped and swore you would never revisit, the church that hurt you, the family that abandoned you, the place where you learned the world was cruel. You got out, you survived, you built walls, and God might be saying, "Go back." Peter had a smaller version of this moment. He had fished all night and caught nothing. Exhausted, frustrated, ready to quit, A carpenter who knew nothing about fishing told him to try again. Master, we worked hard all night and caught nothing. This is the voice of experience, the voice that says, I already tried. It did not work. But at your word I will lower the nets. At your word, 3 words that override everything. My experience says no. My exhaustion says no. My wounds say absolutely not. But you are speaking, so I will move. The nets nearly broke from the catch. Peter fell to his knees, terrified, suddenly aware he was standing next to power he could not comprehend. Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. This is what happens when you obey the impossible command. You discover that the one who gave it knew exactly what he was doing. The empty nets fill. The pagan nation converts. The wound becomes the testimony. St. Patrick's Confession is one of the most raw documents any saint ever wrote. He calls himself unlearned, a sinner, unworthy. He never pretends to be impressive. His whole argument is, look what God did through someone as broken as me. That is the testimony no one can argue with. Not look how qualified I am. Not look how much I have overcome. But I was a careless kid who got kidnapped, and God used the worst years of my life to make me into someone who could bring an entire nation to Christ. The psalm says, proclaim God's marvelous deeds to all the nations. St. Patrick did not proclaim from a safe distance. He proclaimed standing in the middle of the people who had broken him. His presence was the sermon. A man who should have been bitter was standing there with blessing. You cannot proclaim God's marvelous deeds if you are hiding from your story. The testimony is in the return. The power is in the going back. Peter left the biggest catch of his life on the shore because he found something bigger. St. Patrick left safety and sanity because God was sending him somewhere that made no sense. The slavery made him. The suffering formed him. The worst years of his life became the preparation for the greatest work of his life. What if your Ireland is not just a place to go back to? What if it is the very thing God has been using all along, put out into deep water? At your word I will lower the nets. Go back.